2 weeks later, I can start using my mill again now that I got a new drive belt for it. There were a couple mishaps getting me a new drive belt. At least Woodmizer didn't charge me for the belt. If you didn't like the mosquito swooshing video, blame Woodmizer. They are the reason why I had some free time on my hands. Now I have the butt log of this black oak I can get out of my way. I was debating this morning whether I want to mill this or cut it into firewood. The butt end of it has all this radial cracking. It was that way when it was fresh cut. It's not just checking from drying. The top end of it has surprisingly little checking in it. It's been sitting out a long time in dry heat, one day close to 100 degrees. I didn't seal the ends of it mostly because I didn't want to. I'm going to take a slice or two out of it, see how it looks, and decide from there. It's nice looking wood. If it looks like I've made that first cut really deep, it's because I did. Partly because the log is bowed, and just to get rid of the sapwood. A nice thing about cutting it into firewood would be I don't have to sticker it, stack it, worry about it drying straight, cracking. But the disincentive for firewood is firewood's cheap around here, and I have an abundance of it. In the previous black oak video, some of you suggested I quarter saw this log. The top was only 12 inches diameter. I think it's too small to efficiently quarter saw. The heart was way off center. On this side of it, there's enough room I can get at least a couple quarter sawn boards out of. I'll cut a cant out of this that we can get those out of. We can at least see some quarter sawn wood. As we're getting closer to the pith, we have all this cracking in it, extending all the way out to the edge. As we get close to the edge, we can see some wood that is close to quarter sawn. That cracking is very extensive through most of this butt log. As extensive as this cracking is, that part that I was going to quarter saw, looks like the cracking goes right into that. And as unimpressed as I am with the grain on this wood, the outer part of it was nice. But the deeper I go in, it's just I have another idea for these cants. I'm going to take them for a little ride. They are not going to pass go. They're not going to collect $200. They are getting a free ride straight to the firewood pile. I think this could be as good a time as any, or in my case, a better time than most, to try the electric chainsaw on hardwood. I could get some marginal pieces of lumber out of this if I kept milling it. But after I take the time to mill it, sticker it, stacker it, dry it, then still have to cut most of this waste wood into firewood. But instead of doing that, I could take the time it would take me to do all of that to get some marginal lumber, and I could make another video. I've already done one about swatting mosquitoes with a branch. Maybe I could do one about swatting flies with a branch. What would be better, a video like that or a few marginal pieces of lumber? Don't answer that. Now do you see why I'm not milling it? Obviously, it's not as fast as my gas saw, which is a completely different class of saw, but it gets the job done. The nice thing about the electric saw in a situation like this, where I do a few cuts, then do something else, I don't have to start and stop the saw. I don't have to restart it or set it down while it's running and on this slope watch it vibrate its way away. You just set it down, pull the trigger. It's kind of nice. I haven't been doing YouTube videos for a super long time, but I've been doing them long enough now that I'm starting to get to where I can predict what some of the comments are going to be from a few people. On this one, somebody is going to say, well, they might not now that I've mentioned this, I don't know why you bother wearing those chainsaw chaps with an electric chainsaw. Them chaps are made for gas saws. Electric chainsaws got a lot more torque. They'll go right through those chaps. No point in wearing them. Well, thank you for that. We already know this. That information's circled around a long time ago. Are the chaps not going to provide any resistance? Yeah, electric chainsaws are more likely to go through chaps, but I think it's going to provide at least a little bit of resistance before it starts cutting into my leg. If a saw is going to be cutting into my leg, I would rather it have gone through a little bit of resistance than have my leg be the first line of defense. For some reason, we're getting into a world where people like to go to extremes. Chainsaw chaps are less effective against electric chainsaws, therefore don't wear them at all. Instead of what I think is a little more common sense, how about you wear them just knowing they're less effective against electric chainsaws and get what little protection at least you can get out of them. I don't think those extremes are serving us well. And the hard hat, when there's no overhead dangers, hard hat when running a chainsaw is to help protect you from kickback. And I've noticed this saw can be a little bit kicky if it gets pinched just right. Running a saw like this, it can be tempting not to wear PPE because it feels a little bit like it's not a real chainsaw, even though it is. It reminds me of the story, my cousin bought a Chevy Spark years ago, one of those little tiny Chevy cars. I drove it a couple times. I agreed with him when he said, when you're driving this thing, it seems like you don't really need to obey the road laws because it feels like you're not in a real car. And I found that to be the case. When I was driving it, I would do things in that car I wouldn't do with a regular car without even thinking about it. It seems like it's a little bit the same way with the electric chainsaw, but these can still bite you, and they can bite hard. Another comment I would likely get is people telling me how I could make this job easier. All good meaning, and they mean well doing that. Maybe build some kind of a sawbuck, some kind of a something. Usually involves building something. The reason I don't do that is because this is the only time I've done this particular thing right here this year. And it's likely the only time I will. If this was something I do often, I might take time to build or come up with an easier way to do it. But to take 2 hours to build something that might make this 15-minute job go quicker, just doesn't make sense if it's a one-time deal. If I was doing this often, yeah. The battery was at 3 bars when I started. I think it was low 3 bars because it went to 2 quickly after I started. Now I'm at 1 flashing bar. There toward the end I could tell it was getting a little bit low. Took about a half a battery, I think, to cut all this wood. Well, that takes care of the big black oak. I want to give a quick thank you to those who have signed up over on my Patreon. I haven't advertised that I have a Patreon other than putting the link in the descriptions, mostly because I don't have anything to offer over there yet. But there are a few people who have found the link, they've signed up for it, and they donate a few dollars a month to the channel. It's one of the things that helps me to be able to spend more time making videos. Those of you who have done it, I can see you over there. Thank you for that.